Hello and welcome to Friday's Premier League today. No Premier League action this weekend because the FA Cup fourth round takes centre stage. There are Premier League matches in midweek though, but we are joined in the studio by someone who has 2 FA Cup winners' medals and 4 FA Cup final goals. Ian Wright is with us, and alongside him, Raphael Hernigstein, who still very much believes in the magic of the cup. Look at his face, you can just tell. Let's take a look then at how the Premier League table is shaping up as we head into the midweek round of fixtures. Liverpool top, 4 points clear of second place Manchester City. Then it's 5 points to Tottenham, 4 points further back to Chelsea, and then just 3 points between Arsenal, who are level on points with Manchester United. Huddersfield still very much adrift at the bottom, 10 points from safety. Fulham and Cardiff inside the bottom 3. But they can turn their attention away from the league this weekend at least, because 7 teams fell in the third round, which leaves 13 in action in the FA Cup fourth round. The pick of the ties, of course, Arsenal against Manchester United to get things going. We'll be talking about that a little bit later on. But only a few days to wait, though, for a return to Premier League action. And that is on Tuesday and Wednesday evenings. Arsenal against Cardiff does go ahead despite the events at Cardiff this week. Fulham take on Brighton. It's Huddersfield against Everton. West Ham are off to Wolves. Manchester United at home to Burnley. Manchester City are off to Newcastle, who frustrated them last season, although City did get the win. Bournemouth against Chelsea. It's Southampton against Palace on Wednesday. Liverpool at home to Leicester, and Tottenham will play Watford. And we now know the makeup of the League Cup final, because Manchester City, they were already 9-0 up from the first leg, but they just made sure of it and moved into double figures with a 1-0 win at Burton on Wednesday. And then on Thursday evening, Chelsea beat Tottenham 2-1 on the night, 2-2 on aggregate, and Chelsea through 4-2 on penalties to meet at Wembley on the 24th of February. So, Ian, you managed to drag out your FA Cup final appearances. You managed to make absolutely the most of them, going to replay and everything. Yeah,
it was the game I always wanted to play in when I was a child. It was the game of the season, at the end of the season. And you know what I mean, to play at Wembley and to play in the old goals. I used to love the old goals.
Why? In what
because
way?
Because the net was tight, it had the stanchion in, and it was just like, it's just an iconic goal, so when the ball went in, it didn't nestle in the net, it moved around because it was so tight. I remember that so much. So, it was just, like I say, if I never won the league or anything, the FA Cup would have been more than enough for me to win. Yeah, but you nearly didn't make it, did you? You'd been injured. I know, yeah, I broke my fibula, the little bone in the back there. I broke it twice that season. And the second time I'd done it, it was literally from the time I broke it to the time when the FA Cup final was, which the physio, Dave West at the time, was saying, if you work flat out from now till then and we get there, you might just be fit for it. So it was really tough. It was a tough fitness rehab for me that day. Those months, I should say. I'm sorry. So I think back at it, makes me really feel quite emotional. Yeah, the thought of walking onto the pitch and knowing that you're coming on. In that white tunnel with the boots. And the thing is, I didn't start. But I said to Steve Copper, I don't care, I'm going to still do the walkout. Because, the substitutes normally have to go round the side when the teams go out. I said, no, I'm walking out. Were you the only substitute then that walked out? In the middle of our team, yeah. I stayed on this so that when we got to there, I actually even shook the Duke of Kent's hand, and then I went off. So you weren't supposed to. You came on as a substitute and then stood in the lineup. No, but I put my kit on as if I was one of the players who was playing, so I could do the walkout. Good job he wasn't counting. Yeah, but the thing is that I just thought that I may never get to do this again. So I'm going to do it now with Palace, and I'm going to put all my kit on and walk out with Mark Bright. It was amazing. The thing is, it does create magical moments, but from a practical point of view, it's very much not. Certainly for the top clubs in the Premier League, it's not a priority for them, purely because of the financial package. And yet there's so much of an intangible result that you can get from success in the Cups. Yeah, of course. First of all, you play for the enjoyment and the excitement of your fans. And they still regard it as a big trophy. They still enjoy
the day out at Wembley, or the 2 days out at Wembley that these days you get if you go all the way, and being part of history. As much as the financials are important, and perhaps more important for sort of the long-term success chances of teams, they are not really the sort of thing that turns up on letterheads and when it comes to honours and things that you really remember. So I think there's a slight disconnect perhaps sometimes with the owners and the managers thinking about, what do I really need to keep growing here? What is the most important competition for me? What kind of money do I have to generate to keep all my best players? And the more sort of immediate, more emotional response you get from silverware. Ideally, you get both.
We saw that game between Chelsea and Tottenham. Chelsea getting to the League Cup final. You've won it, obviously, so tick that box very much. We've got Arsenal against Manchester United coming up in the FA Cup fourth round. As much as we enjoy these fixtures when they come around in the Premier League, they're part of a bigger story. When you have these two clubs going head-to-head in a knockout game...
Yeah.
There's an extra kind of, I don't know, like an extra buzz about it, an extra element of fight about it.
Yeah, and plus when you get to that stage of it, both the players and obviously the fans, they want to get there, because when you do get to that stage of any of the cup competitions, then you might as well try and get to the final and try and win it. I remember when we were doing it, it seemed like when we started with the League Cup, when we first won it, everybody was very easy about it. It was quite calm. We're going through the earlier stages. Then once you got to like the quarterfinals, everybody was ready to go, because you've got the opportunity to play in a final.
It's an interesting point that you make about that change in mindset, because we'll come to that when we talk about Tottenham a little bit later on. But it is Chelsea who'll be going through to the final to face Manchester City in that League Cup final. Here is Maurizio Sarri on reaching a final in his first season in England.
I think that they reacted really very well tonight. But I didn't attack my players. I only said that we had a problem. The reaction was really very good, but I think that we need to have motivation with continuity now. But I was really very happy with the performance before the penalties. Of course, now it's better, because we will go to play a final, a very difficult final, but we will go to play. But I think that in the last 3-4 matches we had a problem. The problem was the motivation, and the other problem I think that was that the players stopped to have fun on the pitch. And so I think that now with the performance, with the result, we can find again enthusiasm. I had fun for 65 minutes with Hazard. He was, I think, a little bit tired in the last part of the match, but he ran a lot, I think. And he played a fantastic, a wonderful match. The position is not a big problem. I think that in this match we played with another mind, with another motivation, with another determination. And so I think that these qualities are more important than the position. If you say that I have never won anything at this level, you are right, of course. But of course, if I started in a non-professional team and now I am in Chelsea, in the other categories I won. Otherwise, it was impossible.
Extraordinary week for Chelsea and Maurizio Sarri. He starts it by criticising his players after the defeat by Arsenal, says they're impossible to motivate. Then they come out and the comments from Eden Hazard, where he says, you know, all managers have found me frustrating. Sarri talks about Hazard being a leader. And then now he can come out, having got to the final in his first season in England, and he's all smiles and laughs, says, oh, the players are enjoying themselves, I'm enjoying myself. It's some turnaround in a week.
Well, but we know that Chelsea's players, they do have a tendency of being able to switch it on and off like that. But I feel that if he was doing it to get a reaction, then it seems to have worked. But we're going to still have to see what happens in the next few games. with the players, because I'm sure that they wouldn't have taken too kindly to the fact that he says it's very difficult to motivate this set of players. And we know that Chelsea's history in respect of, like I say, switching it on and switch it off, depending on what manager and what's going on with them. And so, yes, it's worked for one game. To get to a final, we've got to realise that it is a semi-final, a London derby semi-final against Spurs, rivals kind of, and you're going to get a reaction. So it's going to be interesting to see how they get on in the coming games.
Were they more motivated and improved, or were they just up against the Tottenham side who were missing key players?
Well, they certainly were up against the Tottenham side. They did not quite look at their very best. And how can they when you miss three big players up front? They don't have the depth. And they still did reasonably well and pushed Chelsea all the way at Stamford Bridge. So let's not underestimate sort of the size of the challenge. But I think that you cannot really read too much into it from this game for the reasons that Ian mentioned. This game was always going to take care of itself. You know, the fans were up for it, the players were up for it. There's a trophy that you can almost touch. And it doesn't necessarily tell you anything about Chelsea's ability on a tactical level, on a level of quality in the squad, and also on a mental application level to achieve their big result or their big target at the end of the season, which is the top four, which is going to be really, really hard. So as nice as all this is, and as much as Sarri, as far as we can tell, looks happy, I don't think it really changes anything about the rest of the season. I think it's just going to be just as difficult to make top four as it was before.
Does it change anything about Hazard either? Because we saw a great performance from him last night, but not necessarily because he looked more motivated. Was it more about the fact that he was just playing in his natural position?
Yeah. Well, it's got to have something to do with it. And it's, I like the way Hazard is dealing with everything. You're not hearing too much noise coming out of him.
Playing with Olivier Giroud, they have this special relationship. The goals just haven't come for him, so that's why it's happened. Are they going to get them from Gonzalo Higuain, who was a great player, has been a great player, but is on a real dip at AC Milan? Yeah,
he didn't have a great time at Milan. He'll have a better time at Chelsea simply because the team is better. Yeah. And as a centre-forward, you are reliant on what's around you, and these guys will work for him. Playing with Hazard, you're going to get chances. You're going to get crosses coming in. You'll have touches in the box. My only problem or question mark about Higuain is, can he lead the line effectively? You don't have to play like that against many sides, especially at home. Chelsea will have a lot of the ball and don't necessarily need somebody who's just going to be with the back towards goal. But when it comes to the more tricky away games, when it comes to the more difficult teams, can Higuain play the role that Giroud does very effectively without necessarily scoring enough goals? That is my one concern that I have. But I think in terms of natural goal-scoring ability, he would be a better fit and promises more than what they have at the moment.
Well, that's the question. Does he have to come and be the brilliant Higuain who's broken the record in Serie A for most goals scored in a season when he was playing under Sarri? Or does he just have to come in and be good?
Well, I think that if he comes in and, for instance, like Hazard is playing in his normal position and he can strike up some form of relationship with him, which I'm sure he can, then he probably will score. But when you look at his recent form, like 2015-16 was 36 league goals. That's the season you're talking about. And then I think the season after, he went down to 26, and the season after that it was 16, and now he's got 6 at the moment. So he seems to be waning in respects of these goal-scoring output. And you feel like, Raf said, maybe those teams won't have the kind of creative potency that Chelsea have. So it might be something where he can hit the ground running, but you would like to say that he's now surely going to put Hazard in a position that's going to help Higuain and put him in a position where he will play and give him as much service as he can get.
It's also, I think, a bit of a victory for Sarri, personally, because he wanted to bring in Higuain in the summer. Yeah. And then, don't know if you remember, Higuain came out with a statement saying, Sarri was the only one who really wanted me at Chelsea. No one else did. Well, now Sarri has managed to convince other people at Chelsea that Higuain can make a big difference.
It's got desperate for Chelsea, because when you watch some of the games, Rap, they seem to get to a glass ceiling where you do the edge of the box. You know, you're getting into positions where Azpilicueta or Alonso, there's no one to actually put it in there to, whether it's Pedro or Willian or Hazard. No one's actually getting in there, so they have to come back out, and it's being pretty predictable, really. So it should help them.
It's not the first time that Chelsea have gone into the market for a player, not towards the end of their career, but certainly in the latter stages of it, because they do have this history of signing players who, if not 30 when they come in. They certainly turned 30 at the club, and it hasn't necessarily been very successful. Fernando Torres is not in that because he was 27 when he arrived at Chelsea, so he just misses. I don't know why we're saying 28 is vintage.
He looked,
he
looked as if he was much older by the time he arrived at Chelsea.
Yes, but certainly by the time he left as well. But if you just spend £50 million on a player who doesn't quite deliver, it's going to put pressure on them. And in the same way, they've done that with really big-name strikers in there who've been fantastic players in their time and haven't made it work at Chelsea. Is this a different situation? Is it a similar situation?
I think this reflects the pressure on managers at Chelsea to succeed. And when you're under pressure, you go for a name, you go for an established striker, and you opt for players that you think will give you goals. I mean, when they signed Shevchenko, he was one of the best centre-forwards in the world. The same with Torres, the same with some of the other guys. But for one reason or the other, it hasn't always worked out for them. Some have, you know, the likes of Costa, for example. Drogba is the best example in recent times. So I think that profile really reflects the kind of ad hoc nature that we've seen, and it's been successful as far as the club is concerned, but very difficult for the managers because they know they get very little time. And I think Maurizio Sarri has convinced the club to say, you know what, you want me to make a different Chelsea team. We're changing tactics radically from last season under Antonio Conte, but you need to help me a bit more. Jorginho, the one main new addition, is not enough for me to transform the club and make it competitive to what is so difficult, which is to make the top four. And I think the club have backed him. And now he needs to back his own judgment by making sure that Higuain actually delivers.
And would you expect that Higuain's role in the club, as well as delivering on the goals front, will be about communicating Sarri's message and his style of play to the rest of the players? Will he have a role in doing that and helping Sarri get his point across? And maybe if there are a few doubters in the Chelsea dressing room, in helping him win them over?
I'm not sure, Kels. He doesn't strike me as that kind of guy. He strikes me as just a striker that if you...
But would that not be natural if you...
Because he knows the style of play?
If he's a manager who's had real success under and played really well under, would that not sort of...
Well, maybe,
love not spread in the dressing room?
Maybe he might be able to spread that in the dressing room. And I know that he done well in that season, where he scored the 36 goals. But I remember that even after that, when Dries Merton played there, I thought that he played the role up there even better than what he done. But what I'm saying with him, obviously he'll be able to go in the dressing room and maybe he might be able to be the guy who says, no, honestly, just give him he's a really cool guy, really. Just give him, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. But I think what will happen, maybe now with Higuain, I don't know if he's going to change Kante so as then he may be able to release Jorginho a little bit more forward. Then you've got Hazard in his position. Maybe he might change things so as it does work all in favour for Higuain, so that Higuain does become a success, so then he can be exonerated for the fact that that's what I wanted. That's why I wanted him in the summer.
Because it does feel there's a disconnect between what Sarri wants to do in that very particular way that he likes to play and the players that he has. How far away is he from having the right squad to do what he wants?
Well, it's really difficult to answer because the start of the season was very good. And I remember sitting here and we're saying they're actually ahead of the curve. They seem to have adopted really quickly. They look like a different Chelsea team. They play with dynamic and momentum. I mean, we still have to remember where they came from, which was at the back of a really catastrophic season for Chelsea's, by Chelsea standards. So there was a jump and there was kind of a bounce, and now things have kind of plateaued. And I think now, sort of the everyday life and the size of the task is become more apparent. And I think Dries Mertens is a really good name to drop here because I think when he played Hazard in this role, he maybe felt, I can do with Eden what I've done with Dries, which is to convert him into a centre-forward, a false nine that can score a lot of goals. And it hasn't quite happened. And now in Higuain, the club have backed Sarri's judgment and basically have said to him, we understand that you need more players to really shape this team. And I think it's only fair. And going back to the League Cup, I think it helps him because he will be able to just buy a bit more confidence from the dressing room, from the fans, but also from the people who employ him, to show that we are on the right track. It is going to be difficult, but we go in the right direction.
Yeah, and then Sheffield Wednesday to come in the FA Cup at the weekend, Bournemouth in midweek. And these the kind of fixtures following on from that League Cup win that can help him to get his message or get the players to believe in his message more?
Yeah, I think so, and I think that they're two really good games for someone like Higuain to get involved in. And I think, like I say, it's vitally important that he plays players in there, right, in the positions, because I don't think it's no secret that people, it's no coincidence that they started really well, because Jorginho was playing absolutely fantastically at the start of the season. And I think especially once we saw Tottenham kind of like negate him, and I think people have done that since then. They've put people in and around him because he doesn't get away from people, he can pass. But then when you stop him, it seems to slow Chelsea down a bit, and then the passes have to come from Rudiger and Luiz, and they come from, and so, you know, people kind of work them out as well. So I think that those are the problems that he's got deep down. And if he's got something to score now, I think he might be starting to get the message over to him.
At some stage between now and the end of the season, can we do a montage of Luiz and diagonal balls? So have that one up our sleeves for another stage during the season. But Chelsea, of course, beating Tottenham to go through to the League Cup final. Mauricio Pochettino, though, says despite the defeat, he's happy with his players' effort in the game.
We came here to try to win the game and to be on the final, and of course, congratulate to Chelsea. I think they deserve. We made an unbelievable effort. I think this season we are fighting not only with the opponent, if not many things that happen, but that is not an excuse. I think it's going to make stronger us, and that is very good experience. I think we have 3 competitions still: FA Cup Sunday and Champions League and Premier League, of course. And we arrived to the semi-final, and we lose against Chelsea, one of the best teams on Europe. And what we can say, I only feel proud about the performance and the way that we play and the way that we compete. When you arrive in this type of situation, the most important is to compete, and we compete in both legs. Yes, of course, disappointing, and we are very sad. We cannot play another game on Wembley, but of course, competing in that way, with a little bit lucky, maybe we can arrive on the end of the season, and football will reward us.
Look, what is going to be levelled at Tottenham is the fact that it is yet another near miss.
Yeah.
It's another case of so near and yet so far.
Yeah.
However, how seriously do we have to take into account the fact that they were missing 3 key players from this, Son being away and Kane and Dele Alli being injured?
Well, we know that Tottenham's problem is going to be injuries to key players, because their squad is not deep enough. And injuries to players like Harry Kane, Dele Alli and Son having to go to the Asia Cup is going to cause them problems.
This is a difficult one to plan for. They knew Son was going.
Yes.
But to know that Kane and Dele Alli would be injured at the same time, that would be hard for any team to cope with.
Yeah, but Kels, this is why you try to make signings and buy people that can try and come into cover. How do you cover someone like Harry Kane? You really do have to scour the market to find the person that's going to be happy, to be good enough to be playing second fiddle, maybe not getting as many games as you want to get, and you might get on every now and then when you come on, you have to deliver. This is the problem we're seeing with Llorente. I feel sorry for him, because by the time he comes in, the pressure's so intense on him to have to do stuff. You can see that it's totally wrecked his confidence. Now, the same with Dele Alli. These are key players. You have to make signings that can come in to refresh the squad and help the squad. So then, if you do get into situations like this, which is going to be the main problem that Tottenham are going to have, you can get through it. Now we're going to see how they get through it. They're going to have to bounce back and act like, OK, we're not bothered about not winning the League Cup. He said that. He's not really fussed about the League Cup and the FA Cup, because that's not what you're going to be judged on when you win stuff. But at the same time, it's another cup that Tottenham have failed to win.
Is this a different scenario, though? When you look at the sort of near misses, you've got the semi-final defeat by Chelsea in 2017, the 4-2 in the FA Cup, the one against Manchester United in 2018, the semi-final defeat this time around by Chelsea on penalties. Is this different, though, because of the missing players and because of the level of performance that dropped in previous big games, but that actually, particularly in the second half, was there against Chelsea?
I think it's very difficult to look at this game in the context of the injuries and the context of the absence of Son and the way it went all the way to penalties and say Spurs somehow were psychologically deficient or couldn't deal with the pressure, or there's something in their makeup that makes them fail at semi-final stage. There was very little between them and what is still on paper a better team, certainly a team with more money at their disposal. Chelsea couldn't now, Spurs couldn't now bring in a Gonzalo Higuain as a third striker simply because the other two haven't worked out. Chelsea can. So there is still a difference. And what Pochettino is, he's building the club. And I think ultimately the cups, as much as they provide the emotional excitement and all the things we talked about, will not really make the big difference when it comes to leaving Spurs in a better place afterwards than he's found them in, because it's through that consistency that you get in the league, where they finished 3 times in third place, where they really have no right to be that high relative to other teams that they've left behind them, the likes of Chelsea, likes of Man United, Arsenal as well. And the money that you generate through the Champions League helps you, first of all, keep your best players, which was something that they weren't able to do in the past. And secondly, add to the squad to the point where they can go into games as favourites. Yeah. I think people keep forgetting, conveniently, I think, when they're supporting other sides, that Spurs don't enter any competition as favourites to win them. So when they got quite far, people make that a stick to beat them with and say, well, you didn't go all the way. But finishing second or third is already perhaps more than they should have done if you're the 6th best team in the league. So I have all the time in the world for Pochettino, and I would never hold him against him in a knockout competition when they fail against better sides, which inevitably they do.
You talked about Fernando Llorente, and we're talking about the cup competitions and the important cup competitions. It doesn't look likely that Kane or Dele Alli will be available for the Dortmund games that are coming up in the Champions League. They've got their FA Cup game against Crystal Palace this weekend. Has Llorente shown any signs? He got the goal in the League Cup semi-final at Stamford Bridge.
My link-up play is not great. I'm not holding, all that sort of stuff. You get 2 chances there where you don't have to do too much because the balls that have come in are fantastic and you miss them. Honestly, your confidence just leaves you. It just drains out of you. And when you watched him play after that, you saw the way he was playing. Then the defender got tighter to him. The ball's bouncing off of him. And then all of a sudden, it's affecting the team. It's affecting the team.
Can that come back? Can he get that back?
You have to really... It's one of those things that you just have to have your teammates and that to keep you going, because you've got to do the job for the team as the big guy. He's got to make sure that he holds it. But what I was seeing is that he was... Some of the times the ball's coming off of him a little bit too easy, and I think it's all affected him by the chances that he's missing. You almost feel like I didn't want him to get any more chances. It was one of those, because if he missed again, you could feel the anxiousness. Look at his face looks different and everything. I was gutted for him, really was.
The other issue, I think, is that Kane is so good because he gets into a lot of scoring positions and he creates a lot of scoring positions. Yeah. Llorente just has a much lower number of actual chances because of his movement, but also because when Harry Kane is not there, the people around him don't get into these good moments. They don't get into these situations. That link up, that natural link that exists when Kane is there and sometimes goes deep and lets others run behind him. All this stuff doesn't really come to the fore with Llorente, who is an out-and-out centre-forward, unfortunately without the guaranteed kind of goals that tend to come with it. So, in a way, you're not just missing the Harry Kane's goals, you're not just missing Dele Alli's technique and wizardry, etc. You're missing what makes Spurs as a team work really well. And Llorente is a much more isolated kind of player, and I think that's where they really struggle.
It really is a shame.
With Dele Alli out, Harry Kane and Son missing and on Asia Cup duty, and with Moura being injured, Spurs have missed, I think, 39 goals from this season, from their starting 11 last night. Moura did come on, and it looks as though he's going to be available from now, and he's recovered from his injury. But the games they've got coming up, Spurs, can that affect them? Can the defeat by Chelsea affect them, do you think?
Well, you're hoping that Mauricio Pochettino can get them going. He does seem like somebody that does put his arm around the players and get them going, because like Rafa said, what Spurs are doing the last few years is just unprecedented with the team he's got and the depth that he has. But you have to say, with these games coming up, you have to tell us, these teams will be themselves thinking, no Harry Kane, no Dele Alli, no Son. It's an opportunity to put them under even more pressure. This is where, like you say, with Llorente, like Rafa rightly said, he's more like he stays up there and you have to play into him and go and meet him. Hopefully he can keep it and then you can break from there. But if that's not happening, then you are losing a lot of your potency. And this is why you have to worry for Spurs at the moment with those teams coming up, because not only is it you have to try and find Spurs Spurs have to find a way to get themselves going and lift themselves up again. But other teams are looking forward to playing against them because at the moment they're weak.
You know where they're targeting to come back? Dele Alli and Harry Kane.
Well, Arsenal?
North London derby, 2nd of March. Is the one they're fighting to be fit for.
Well, let's hope they need to take as much time as they can. You know, don't rush back, guys.
You don't want to come back too
Don't
early and then just ruin the rest of your recovery.
Harry Kane when he rushed back before. Don't rush back.